How's everybody doing today? Friday evening, night, afternoon, whatever you want to call it. Thanks for coming in today. Very special day for me here. We have a special guest that's going to come on in just a minute, and that's the only public domain song from the movie that I could find. I'm sure you all saw the title of it already, and all of you that are fans of the movie, you would remember that song that all the Toons sang. And this is, I searched and searched out of all the songs, and this is the only public domain version of the one song that I could find for the movie. So thank you everyone for being here. Once again, if you're on the Facebook side, please come over to the YouTube channel. The link is in there. Come on over, chat along with everybody, and they can chat along with you. And in honor of today's guests, I have two pieces of memorabilia from 1990 and 1991. We're going to ask a couple of trivia questions, and these are the items that you could win. Now, forget about the numbers that are on the bags and boards. That's just what I had laying around from something else. But you can see they're autographed. Gary autographed these for me when he was at my Disney show in '93. So these came out of my collection. Roger Rabbit, #1 from Disney Comics, and Roger Rabbit's Toontown, #1 from Disney Comics. So I'll have those. We'll have two trivia questions. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Gary Wolf.
Well, you make me sound a whole lot better than I really am, I got to tell you.
How have you been, Gary?
I've been stuck here in my dank, dark writer's dungeon. I'm losing track of what day it is. I'm losing track of all kinds of things. But you Roger Rabbit fans will be happy to know that I do my best work when my life is in complete turmoil. And I am writing currently a new Toontown novel. I've started calling these novels my Toontown series. There's Who Censored Roger Rabbit, the first one, Who Plugged Roger Rabbit, the second one, Who Whacked Roger Rabbit, the third one. I'm now working on the fourth one. And the fourth one is going to be a Jessica Rabbit novel. Jessica is the star, and it is also a Toontown Origins novel. It will take Jessica from where she started to where she wound up, and it will show the fans how Toontown came to be. And it is, I am not the world's fastest writer, which is why you don't see a million Toontown novels. I generally write a page a day. If I'm lucky, a page a day. Since I've been shut in here, I'm 5 pages a day. So I'm almost 2.5 years ahead of schedule on this novel. I'm hoping to have it done in another 2 months. God, I hope I don't have to stay in this room for another 2 months. But anyway, that's what I'm up to.
How many books did you do before the movie came out?
You mean how many? Before I wrote Roger Rabbit, I had written 3 novels and maybe 20 or 30 short stories. All of those novels have since been optioned to the movies. Roger Rabbit was my fourth novel, and obviously the biggest success of all of them, and also the hardest one to get published.
I remember you talking about that when you did a little talk at the show.
Yeah.
Let the fans know, like, how many times you had to send out the book before Disney got it.
Sure. Just a lesson in life: never give up. I had a contract with Doubleday, and I'm sorry, with St. Martin's Press. I had a contract with St. Martin's Press, and the contract stipulated that I would write a novel, I would send it to them, and they would publish it. And they didn't really care what that novel was. Anything I wanted to write, they would publish. They had a lot of faith in me. That started with my first novel, which was Killer Bowl. Then I did The Resurrectionist. Then I did A Generation Removed. And they just kept publishing it and saying, okay, send us another one. We'll publish that one. So I had a novel. I had a contract for a fourth novel. And I wanted to expand my horizons. I wanted to break the envelope a little bit and do something that never been done before. And when I was growing up, my two loves in life were comic books and cartoons, which I used to watch all the time on television and at the local movie theater, and noir mysteries. I got into noir mysteries because my father used to read these true crime magazines, and true crime magazines were pretty horrible and pretty graphic. A photographer would go to a crime scene and photograph it, and this included murder, whatever you got.
Yeah.
And then they would publish this in the magazine. So, as a kid, I'm looking at these horrific scenes of gangland murders. Luckily, I got into better writers, better detectives, and really came to love noir mysteries. So for my fourth novel, I wanted to do something that combined cartoons, comic strips, and hard-boiled private eyes. And it's not easy to come up with a concept that does all of those things. So I worked on it for 6 or 8 months trying to come up with a concept. And one day I was watching Saturday morning cartoons, pure research. I told my wife, just for pure research. I'm sitting here watching cartoons for research. And I became fascinated with something I saw there. It wasn't the cartoons, but it was the commercials, because all of a sudden I saw Tony the Tiger, the Trix Rabbit, Snap, Crackle, and Pop, Captain Crunch, and these were cartoon characters talking to real kids, and nobody seemed to think that was odd. And so I said to myself, gee, what a great idea that would be for a novel. What if you had a world where cartoon characters were real? What kind of a world would that be? So I started researching cartoons seriously to see what kinds of things cartoon characters did that human beings didn't do. And it took me another 6 months, and I wrote the book. Took me another year, but that was my book. And so I sent it to St. Martin's, and the editor there said, "Oh my God, we can't publish this." They rejected it. First time in my life I'd ever had a reject. And so I went to my editor, and I said, Sharon, you rejected this. Why did you reject this? And she said, "Oh, well, I loved it. It's just clearly the best thing you've ever written, but it is so unlike anything you've ever written. It's so unlike anything anybody's ever written that I had to send it to the marketing department, because they get the final say." So I sent it to the marketing department. They were the ones who said, "I can't publish this." They rejected it. So I called the head of the marketing department. I said, "Chuck, why did you reject this?" He said, "Everybody in the marketing department just loved it. We were all laughing. It was just great, but it's not like any book that we've ever published before, or that anybody's ever published before. There's no category for this book on the bookstore shelves. It's not a regular adult novel. It's not a fantasy novel. It's not really science fiction. It's not a children's book. It's not really a mystery. I got no category for it. There's no place on the bookstore shelves." He says, "I can't sell this book." So I said to the guy, "What would you do if you had Alice in Wonderland or Gulliver's Travels or The Wizard of Oz? What if somebody brought you those? What would you do with those?" And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, "I couldn't sell those either." So
Wow.
so I went back to my agent, and I said, "Bill, what am I going to do here?" I said, if I cannot publish this book, which is clearly the best thing I've ever written, and it is the kind of book I want to write. If I can't publish this, I don't want to be a writer anymore. I'll go do something else. He said, no, don't worry. We'll find it a home. So he started sending it out to different different publishers and sometimes different editors at the same publisher. And along the way, the book got 110 rejects. 110 times that book was rejected.
Wow.
All the rejects came to me. We didn't have email in those days, so they all came by mail. And I used to call going out to the mailbox every day my daily disappointment, because there would be excuse me, don't have the virus, just have asthma. There would be sometimes 5 rejects in my mailbox.
Wow.
I started putting them up on my office wall. Eventually, I covered a whole wall with 110 rejects. And so finally, and it was always for the same reason. I mean, editors loved it. Marketing department said, you can't sell this. No category on the bookstore shelf. So finally, I sent it to an editor at a publisher, and she had just edited a major bestseller for this publisher, and the head of the publishing department, the head of the publisher, the president of the company, told her that she could have a vanity project. She could do anything she wanted for her next book, and just at that moment, my book came across her desk, and she read it and she loved it. So she went to the president of the company and said, "Hey, excuse me, hey, this is the book I want to publish for my vanity project." So he said, "Okay, I'll take it home tonight. I'll read it, see what I think." So he came back the next day, and he said, and I told you you could publish anything you wanted, but you can't publish this because I can't sell it. There's no category for it on the bookstore shelves." And that editor stepped up to the plate and said, "Either publish it like you said you would, or I quit."
Wow.
And so they published it, very, very small quantities. I think 5,000 copies, which is next to nothing. And if I had my life to live over, what I would do is I would buy all 5,000 of those copies, because I think it cost $2.99 back in the day, and they sell on eBay now for $350. So
Wow.
I would have made some serious money. But
Yeah.
but they did publish it, and from the time that they said they were going to publish it until the time that it actually came out was a year. And in that year, when the book hadn't come out, in that year, I get this call at home, and I answer the phone, and the guy on the phone says, "Hey, is Gary K. Wolf there?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He says, "Well, this is Roy Disney at the Disney Company." And I think, "Yeah, right, Roy Disney calling me at home. Right, that's going to happen." And he says, "No, it's really Roy Disney, and I want to know if you'd be interested in having us publish your book. We read your book and we really loved it. The book hasn't come out yet. What is this guy talking about?" Well, it turns out that somebody at the publishing company had sent a manuscript of the book to the Disney Corporation, because they thought that somebody at the Disney Corporation would like it, and it was a perfect book for Disney. And it turned out it was. I never found out who that was. I wanted to find out so I could kiss her or him full on the lips, but I never found out who that was. And
Wow.
he said, we want to we want to make your book into a movie. Are you interested in that? And of course I was, and they offered me more money than I had ever made for everything I'd ever written before that put together. So
No,
I said,
Roy, I'm sorry, Roy is Walt's brother or nephew?
no, Roy Disney is a nephew.
That's right.
It was Walt, and I can't remember what his brother's name is. And Roy was his brother's son.
Yeah.
But was running the company at that time, and looked just like Walt. I mean, looked just like him. And so I don't know if you've read the book, But if you haven't, you should. Everybody should. It's available on my website. Everybody should go there and read it. But the book I did not think was filmable because it was written to be the best possible book that I could write. And it really requires that somebody who reads it uses their imagination. You have to get into it and you have to project yourself into it, and you have to use your own imagination to read the book. The movie puts it right up there on screen, no imagination required. So there are things in the book that are different from the things in the movie. Like in the book, because these are comic strip and comic book characters, they are like photographed for their comic strips and their comic books, and they speak in word balloons. So
right, I heard you say that before.
yeah. So if if you talk to a Toon in the book, he puts up a word balloon up over his head, and you have to kind of read what that word balloon says, and then if he turns around, then his word balloon turns around too. So you either have to go with him and go to the other side of him, or you have to learn to read backwards. And if you shoot somebody with a Toon gun, it produces a bang balloon, and a bang balloon is bang balloon.
Yeah.
And then it's laying there on the ground, and you can pick it up. And if you find a gun and you suspect that was the murder weapon, then you shoot it, and it produces a bang balloon. And you compare the two bang balloons, and that's how you get a match. And when somebody plays the piano, the notes will drift through the air, and you cut them off in 8x10 sheets, and that's where sheet music comes from. So there's a lot of stuff in the book that requires people to use their imagination, and I did not think that they were going to be able to translate the concept to the movies. I just didn't think it was going to work. Plus, Disney in those days, and Disney now is a powerhouse. Disney in those days,
right.
Not so huge. I mean, they were a second-rate movie house, and they were in danger of becoming a third-rate movie house. They were producing movies like The Nutty Professor and The Black Cauldron and
Right.
I think The Black Hole, which the Black Cauldron disappeared down. I don't know. They had been offered ET and turned it down. They'd been offered Star Wars and turned it down. And they really needed a big hit to prove that they were a major motion picture company. And they all at the time saw this as that movie.
Wow.
But at the beginning, they kind of proved me right. They really didn't have the horsepower to do it. This was 1980,
Right.
and they really didn't have the horsepower to do it.
How much input did you have from making the movie? Like the decisions? Did you have any
No,
input?
it went up and down. I'm an author. I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not a movie maker. At the beginning, I didn't think they could make this into a movie because I didn't think it was filmable. So there was really not much I could contribute. When Steve Spielberg got involved, he liked my work and valued my opinion. And, they would call me in every now and then, just as a courtesy, I guess, but it was fun for me. And I would sometimes be sitting in a room with 35 of the most creative people I've ever met in my life. And they're all talking about ways to make my book better. And, I'm thinking, geez, where were you guys when I was sitting around my kitchen table at 4 a.m. writing this thing? If I had you 35 guys, I'd have a Pulitzer Prize. So it kind of, my involvement with it, feet on the ground, kind of float and ebb, but I wasn't that interested in doing it because it's not really my bag. I went to the filming once it got rolling and they were filming it. I went to as much of the filming as I wanted to go to. I could go to all of it. I could go to none of it. And I went to just enough to to kind of satisfy my curiosity. I went to the filming at Elstree Studios in London because that was kind of cool. And I went to the filming at some of the filming that Lucas did at the Lucas Studios. I went to a lot of the sound work at Light Magic out in California. Of course, I went to a lot of the animation stuff in down in Orlando and of course in Europe. But they didn't hang around, and it wasn't my life's work. And the project really got going in 1985 and wasn't released until '88. So that was 3 years. Um, I wasn't going to stay in London for 3 years, but they kept me posted. I knew what was going on and I knew what was happening, and I started to think to myself, this is got a shot. This could really be something good. I mean, there's a lot of really talented people involved in this,
Right.
and they're doing a great job. When I would go out there every now and then, I'd go out to California and see some of the dailies and see some of the work that had been done. It was just mind blowing stuff. Oh my God, this is just incredible.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my involvement.
Did you end up with any of the screen used props from the movie? Anything that they used?
I'm not a big, I'm not a big collector guy. When they shot open the lock on Eddie Valiant's door, I kept some of the spent cartridges just because I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
They at the end of filming, they apparently took a lot of the props and threw them in the dumpster out back.
Wow. And, people would be going crazy.
Well, I know a guy who lives in London, and he lived within walking distance of Elstree, and he used to hang around out back every night. And they would throw props in the dumpster, and he would go get them. They got a bunch of good stuff, but I'm not a big collector guy anymore. I used to have one of every piece of merchandise that Roger Rabbit appeared on, just because it was contractual for me, and they had to send it to me. And I used to live in a place that had a barn, and the whole barn was all full of Roger Rabbit stuff. But I'm not. If I can't play with it, what good is it?
That's true.
I
mean, it's your baby, basically.
Yeah, it's my baby. I own it. The one piece of Roger merchandise that I have, or memorabilia, I guess, they gave me a cell from the movie. And you guys know what cells are, right? I mean,
yeah. And hopefully everybody in the audience knows.
I guess, yeah.
Everybody's loving it so far. One Mick said, I hear you got Dumbo to work for peanuts.
Oh, that's low. That's low. So anyway, they gave me a cell from the movie, and it was very, very special cell to me because it was Roger and Jessica hanging from the rope at the end of the movie. And if you watch the movie, you will see that Roger and Jessica are not in a lot of scenes together.
Mm-hmm.
They are in scenes individually, but that is really the only scene where they are actually together. And so they gave me that cell framed from that segment, and it is the perfect cell. It's right after she says she loves him, and he's looking up at her, and it's got this great look at his face, and it's autographed by Dick Williams, who was the lead animator, Charlie Fleischer, who was the voice of Roger, Kathleen Turner, who was the voice of Jessica, autographed it. Bob Zemeckis, the director, autographed it, and Steve Spielberg autographed it, and Bob Hoskins autographed it. So it was autographed by
very nice.
And I still have that. I have that hanging on my wall, and just a kind of an eerie, ironic note. The day that Bob Hoskins died, I went to look at that cell, and his signature had disappeared. It was gone. You could look at it, and with a magnifying glass, his signature was gone. So it's kind of eerie. Yeah, kind of eerie for me. But what made that cell even more precious to me, a couple of years later, when I was doing the Who Whacked Roger Rabbit novel, I needed an illustrator to do character design for me, and I was looking around for somebody to do it, and the guy that I finally decided would do it was a guy named Jock Muller. He had worked on the Roger Rabbit movie, and also animated a lot of other stuff. Paula Abdul's thing with the I think Coyote music video and a bunch of other stuff. But he was just a blowaway animator. So I had him do the cover of my book and some of the new characters that I developed for that book. And when we were talking about this cell, Jacques said, "Oh, I was the guy that did that cell. I animated that scene."
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I'm really he died young. He passed away. Had lifelong health problems, and passed away a couple of years ago. And I'm really sorry that before he went, I didn't get that cell to him and have him autograph it too, because it would have made it really, really meaningful.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't been paying too much attention to the chat, but people are loving it. They are Roger Rabbit fans. Two
Who
things.
isn't? Who isn't? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Sandy asked, you probably remember Sandy, my wife.
Sure, of course.
Any just quick funny stories that happened on set or anything like that?
Well, the best story for me didn't happen on set. It happened at the premiere, and they had the premiere at Radio City Music Hall, and that's in New York City. And I was living in Boston at the time. I mean, I've lived here for half my life now, and they had it at Radio City Music Hall, so I wouldn't have to come west. So we went to New York City, and they had not really finished the movie until 4 or 5 days before they actually premiered it. I mean, they were still working on it, and they probably would still be working on it if you if you let them have their own way. So I had not seen the entire movie all the way through, and I had never seen my credit on the screen. So I was sitting in the first balcony, which is where they put all the VIPs, and I was gonna watch the movie, and I was sitting there between Kathleen Turner on my left and Amy Irving, who was Steve Spielberg's wife at the time, on my right. So I am sitting there getting ready to watch my movie, see my credit for the first time, between two of the most gorgeous women I've ever met in my life. And I'm thinking to myself, life just doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah.
And then by golly, life got better because Kathleen reached over and put her hand on my leg.
Oh.
She leaned over and whispered in my ear. She said, "Gary, are you excited?" And I said, "Kathleen, you have no idea."
That is cool.
Yeah.
Melanie asked, we're in the era where they're remaking everything and doing prequels and sequels.
Mm-hmm.
Any word on any updates on Roger or part 2 or a prequel?
Yeah, I can't really talk about that.
Okay.
I can't talk about it. I'm sorry.
Right.
What's her name? Melanie?
Melanie Lightbeam.
Right.
Let me just say one thing too. Gary we have to cut the interview short, 15 minutes, because Gary's going to be on was it something in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I've got a conference call in Hollywood on my new project.
Future project. So
which I will tell you about. You guys this will be an exclusive for you guys. But I wrote a science fiction novel called Space Vulture with my longtime best friend. I mean, we were boys together. We were babies together. We've always been best friends. And his name is John Myers. John became a priest and later became the Catholic Archbishop of New Jersey. So when we were in the 7th or 8th grade, John and I were both really big readers. I was reading by now, noir mysteries and adventure stories. John was reading, he was always the brainy one. He was reading biographies and histories. And but we both love science. And one day he came to me with this book called Space Hawk. And he said, "You got to read this. This is science, but it's fiction. It's science fiction." And we'd never heard of that. Science fiction. What is this? So we we both read the book and we both just loved it. I mean, it was the best book we had ever read, bar none. So we started reading more science fiction. And we went to the town librarian and she said, "Can you get us more science fiction?" She said, "Yeah." So she got us Bradbury and Isaac Asimov and Harlan Ellison and, good science fiction writers. So, 10 years ago, I decided that I was going to get 2 copies of Spacehawk, and I was going to send one to John and keep one for myself. And we would reread it together and then discuss it, because we could still quote lines from it verbatim. I mean, I still remember lines from Spacehawk. And so I got 1 copy for him, 1 copy for me, and I read it. It's the worst book you've ever read in your life. It's horrible book. It's terribly written. All the characters are cardboard yahoos, and it's borderline racist. I mean, there's nothing good about this book. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a straight line from this book to Roger Rabbit. This got me interested in science fiction, and that led to Roger Rabbit. And without Spacehawk, there would have been no Roger Rabbit. So I called John and I said, "Hey, did you read that book?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "So what'd you think?" He said, "Well, it wasn't very good." I said, "Yeah." One of us, we still argue who, but one of us said, "It's a shame we can't rewrite it the way we remember it instead of the way it really was." So we decided we were going to do that. And we spent a year, and he was in New Jersey, I was in Boston, so we could get together, and we spent a year rewriting it. And I thought, well, it'd be easy. I got the rights to the original. I thought, well, just, kind of spruce it up, but you couldn't save it. I mean, there was just nothing about it. So we had to write a whole new novel. We wrote the whole new novel. Tor published it, and it is a pulp science fiction novel, which is the kind of science fiction novels they were writing back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And it's been phenomenally successful. It became a science fiction essential, which means that the science fiction community considers it a book you have to have in your library.
Oh, wow.
The New York Times did an article on the 5 greatest pulp science fiction novels ever written, and there was Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury and us, and we're getting great fan letters from people, guys who read these when they were boys, saying, "Oh, I never thought I'd see one of these again." But then we're getting fan letters from their sons and daughters saying, "Wow, this is pretty good. My dad gave it to me, and it's pretty good." So anyway, that is now being made into a TV series.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, it'd be a 12-episode TV series. One of the directors is a guy named Kevin Altieri. He did the animated adventures of Batman. And if you watch it, his favorite episode is the Crayface episode. And it's amazing work. If you're Facebook friends with me, I posted his demo reel on my Facebook page. And then the executive producer is going to be Adu Payton, who did the Animaniacs for Steve Spielberg. And the whole thing is being produced by one of the best producers in Hollywood, Eric von Wadke. And we're doing that right now. So even though
cool.
Nothing's going on in Hollywood, we're doing a lot of Zoom meetings and that kind of thing to get that ready to go.
Very cool. Well, let's do this. I know I don't want to keep you late, but let's do this. Let's give away the first prize.
I think I already blew one of your trivia questions, but hey.
That's okay. That's
what I do.
Forget about what's written on the bag, everybody. That's just for me, my reference. I'm going to ask a question. The first person to pop up the correct answer is going to win. I'm going to ship it to you. How many Academy Awards did Who Framed Roger Rabbit win? You get one guess. You get one guess. Go. Put the answer in the chat. You get one guess. Oh, my God. Adam got it right away. 4 Academy Awards.
Good for Adam.
Very, very cool, Adam. Very cool. Thank you very much. And
Do I know Adam? Adam's probably a ringer.
yeah, Adams. He has a channel, Adams Exploits.
No, okay.
And then before that, somebody wrote Old School Picker, because most of the people on here now, since I've been in Florida, I've been doing mostly more eBay and Amazon
Hmm.
stuff. So we're all resellers.
Hmm.
And Old School Picker asked a question. Did you get a lot of slack from about the Jessica Rabbit character? Might have been controversial for the time.
Um, Actually, not as much as you would think. I got much more flack. The thing I got flack about, and the thing that people criticized me about, was the drinking. Uh, nobody said nobody said word one about this hypersexual woman. Nobody said anything about that. Nobody said anything about anything. But I got criticized because, oh my God, there's so much drinking in this movie, and I'm bringing my kids to see it, and this detective is and the rabbit and everybody's always drinking. But I will tell you how Jessica came to be a little bit, because that's a good story. Um, I come from a small town in Illinois where the boys outnumbered the girls by 35 to 1. So, good luck getting a date if you're like the president of the checkers club, right? So, when it came time for me to write this book, I wanted to make this this woman, Jessica Rabbit, the epitome of womanhood, the ideal woman, the woman that I would have dated if I had been able to get a date, which I couldn't. So I did that. And, later on when I'm talking to people in Hollywood about Jessica, and they're saying, you mean for you, Jessica is the epitome of women? And I said, well, yeah. They said, well, you don't really understand women very well, do you? And they said, maybe you should stick to writing like Turkish prison movies and war movies where you don't have to deal with like feminine issues, if this is your idea of a woman. Um, but I did not get a lot of flack on that. No, no.
Wow. Yeah, and Mick is saying the infamous Jessica crotch shot.
Well, yeah, but I got to tell you, okay, it's the crotch shot. We'll go to the crotch shot. Everybody wants to go to the basement. So here, get on the elevator. We'll go to the basement. The animation is a really really wicked boring
Yeah.
tedious. And so animators, to amuse themselves, and this goes all the way back to the days of Gertie the dinosaur,
Yeah.
one of the first animated cartoons. Animators discovered that film goes through a camera at 24 frames a second, and you can screw around with 6 of those frames. So that's 6/24 of a second. You can screw around with 6 of those frames, and it'll amuse you. But it goes through the camera so fast the human eye can't see it. So they call those gags in the margins, and they put those gags in the margins in animated movies going all the way back. It's just a way for animators to amuse themselves. Um, Fleischer, when he was doing Betty Boop, in every Betty Boop cartoon, when she says boop boop be doop, the front of her dress for 6 frames goes down. You can see her top, and it goes back up again. Every Betty Boop cartoon. So when we're making the Roger Rabbit movie, the animators in the Betty Boop scene thought it would be fun to do an homage and have the front of her dress fall down. And so they did the scene, and they went to me and they said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I said, "I think it's hilarious." They said, "Well, can we leave it in the movie?" I said, "Man, that's way above my pay grade." I said, "You got to go to you got to ask Steve." I said, "Steve's got the." He says, "Well, you ask him. He likes you." So I go to Steve and I say, "Hey, Steve, they did this. What do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, it's pretty funny." He said, "Yeah, you can leave it in." So I went back to the animators and said, "Hey, all right, you can leave it in." So they say, "Well, can we do more? Can we do more?" And I went back, Steve, they want to do more. He says, "Okay, you can do more, but nothing R or X rated, PG-13 only." All right. So they did more, and the whole movie is just filled with them. Um, but
Yeah.
one of the scenes is when Jessica and Bob Hoskins as Eddie Valiant are in Benny the Cab, and they're coming out of Toontown, and they hit the dip, and they hit the light pole. And if you freeze frame it, 6 frames, boom, 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 the first thing you'll see is that Eddie, who pops out of Benny the Cab, is clearly a dummy. Not even a stunt man. He's just clearly a dummy. But you will also see that as Jessica comes out of the cab, she does this incredible cartwheel in the air, and her dress fans out, and her hair fans out. It's just beautiful, beautiful animation. Well, as she's at the apex of her cartwheel, her legs open, and she has no underwear. Well, it's not that she needs underwear. I mean, this is like looking at your Barbie doll, okay?
Right,
I mean,
right.
if that's what turns you on. So, it was all pretty funny. And of course, there was no way that anybody was ever going to see this, because Steve Spielberg, who controlled the rights, didn't believe in releasing movies at that time, VHS. He had never released E.T., and he said he was never going to release Roger Rabbit. He was just going to keep releasing it into theaters every 7 years. But, then he finally released E.T. and made $1 billion. And so he said, yeah, let's do Roger Rabbit too. So when Roger Rabbit came out on VHS, Frank Marshall, the producer, went on probably Johnny Carson or something and told the Betty Boop story. And Disney just freaked. They said, oh my God, we've got a topless woman.
Yeah.
A cartoon character, right? A topless woman in a PG-13 movie. So they called back all the VHS tapes and they excised that scene. So it's no longer there, right? But they didn't do anything about all the rest of it. Well,
Right.
years later,
There's a lot of them.
so then what happened was, when it finally came out on VHS, people knew that there were gags in the margins, and they started going through it frame by frame and playing it like a video game. And they found them all. They found the one of Jessica. And to show you just how relatively tame this is, USA Today printed that shot on the front page of USA Today in full color. Jessica upside down with her legs spread and no underwear. So it's not like, a porn channel or anything, but it became pretty notorious. Incidentally, that Betty Boop scene, which was excised, those 6 frames are hanging on Bob Zemeckis' living room wall. So
that's cool. Well, let's do the second giveaway before you have to go.
Okay.
This one, nobody can see me. Yeah, let's do it this way. This one is Roger Rabbit's Toontown #1, also autographed by Gary. #1 from 1991. So let's see, I have a lot of different things up here. How about the first person that tells us how many animators worked full-time to make Who Framed Roger Rabbit? How many full-time animators?
I'm clueless.
All right. How many full-time animators did they have working full-time to make the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I got to tell you, the guy or woman who answers this, I'm impressed. I have no idea.
Well, I'm sure they're all Googling it now because I don't see anything close.
432.
Not
I
even.
have no idea.
Keep guessing. Wow, I guess this is a good trivia question then.
This is a great trivia. I have no idea. How did you find out?
I Googled it. Doll's Dolly got it. She must have been fast on the Google.
What's the answer?
326.
Wow. So does that include old Joe, who came in like on Saturdays? And
no, only full time. Only the full-time people. So Doll's Doll. Let me write that down. Well, we're right at 4:45, Gary.
Yeah. I'll take one more question. Give me another question.
All right. Who else has a question for Gary on Who Framed Roger Rabbit? And I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can go back. A lot of guests.
I've answered all their questions. There's no knowledge.
Robert Semecta. Anybody have any more questions for Gary? Oh, all right. There's a good question actually from Kimba, which I don't know if I asked you that way back either. Did you have a cameo in the movie?
I did not. No, I did not. Yeah, and I tell you, I'm a writer. I'm not a movie maker. I am certainly not an actor. I mean, when I see what Bob Hoskins did in an empty room with a green screen and nothing around him, there is no way that I ever want to go in front of a camera because I'm just going to embarrass myself. But they did want to put an homage to me in the movie. I would not have been in the movie even if they'd asked me. But they wanted to put in something that was an homage to me. And so they originally had a funeral scene when Marvin Acme's casket was being carried to his grave. And the pallbearers were 6 kind of goofy characters. In fact, Goofy was one of them. And they were all like lunatic, goofy characters. And as they're carrying the casket, they all start laughing because they're toons and they can't help it. And as they're laughing, then all the people they're passing by start laughing too. So everybody's laughing as this casket goes by. And then they focus on Crazy Cat, who was a cartoon character and a comic strip character from the 30s and 40s. And Crazy Cat never spoke. He never spoke. He was silent. Well, as the casket goes by, he puts up a word balloon, just like there was in my book. He put up a word balloon that said sob. And then it turned to tears and came down and got his shoulders all wet. And it was just beautiful animation, a beautiful scene. And it was the homage to the word balloons in my book. But
okay.
because the movie ran, I think, an hour and 50 minutes in first cut, and they really weren't sure whether this was going to be a kids movie or an adult movie, they had to cut it down to 90 minutes, which rule of thumb is what you have to have for a kids movie. So they cut out a lot of extraneous scenes, and that was one of the scenes they cut. So there went my homage.
Wow. And Judge Doom.
I am on the cover of my own books, though.
Right.
I make it a point to be on it. I portray Eddie Valiant on the cover of all my books. So, and you can buy my books. I recommend buying them in bulk. Wonderful Christmas present, Easter. Easter's right around the corner. You can go to my website, www.garywolf.com. And we just came out with a audio version of the first book, Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which is really good for these long, lonely days that everybody's spending at home alone.
Oh, yes. Yes. Don't we know that? Well, Gary, this has been great. It's good again seeing you again.
Nice to see you too. It's been too long.
Long time ago. We'll have to do this again too. We'll have to do a follow-up to see when you start filming the next project.
Okay. My pleasure. You take care.
All right. Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Wow. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that as much as I did, because that was really cool. I've known Gary now for a long time and just reached out to him, and you guys were into it, which is great too. So yeah, Gary is an awesome guy. But of course he's from Boston. What did you expect? And our winners, congratulations, right out of my personal vault, signed by Gary. So you'll be enjoying these pretty soon. And I really, really do appreciate everybody coming in for this. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome. How did you meet him? way back in the 80s, I had a club for Disney collectors, and I was a show promoter. I did some comic shows with my buddy John in the end. I've done model shows, and I used to do Disney shows. I was a promoter. I would go in, rent a ballroom, rent the Bayside Expo Center, whatever it takes, put the tables in, promote it, get the guests. Like one year at the model show, I had the 10th anniversary Hellraiser reunion where we had the actors that played the Cenobites come in. And when I did the Disney show, I've had one of the Disney's original 9 old men, Gary from Roger Rabbit, had animators come in, not just some of the Disney's 9 old men, but animators from the latest movies, also the later movies. So once you're into it, you get to know people and stuff like that. And Gary's always been a friend. We've just talked via the internet and email stuff back and forth since then. This is the first time we've seen each other since I think he was there. But yeah, it's funny when you talk to people and find out what else they do and what they have done and stuff like that. Like I was talking to Anthony from Pittsburgh. I didn't realize he was a wrestler in the NWA way back. I thought that was really cool because I'm into wrestling. So it's always good to talk to people and find out what they've done or what things like that, what they're into and stuff, other than just reselling. I don't know. I don't know, Lisa. Sandy's still talking to me about it, and I miss Boston. Mick says, and I do too. I do too. And don't forget, everybody. It's almost 5 o'clock. Dolly has her auction at 6, and then Adam has an auction at 7:30. Mick, I don't watch it as much. I just think of it. I look at it as a soap opera for guys. I am Melissa. I'm working on it. We are working on it, and then all this stuff happened. So yes, he is old school picker. So anybody else have any questions or anything? Any other suggestions for show topics? I know we spoke about that yesterday. Reached out to my buddy Phil about coming on next week to do a show, at least one, maybe a couple on, right, Adam, or Record Crate Adam. A show on sports collectibles. He's like the foremost expert on sports collectibles. I remember when they were tearing down the Boston Garden. In his store, he would have rows of seats from the Boston Garden, and what do they call them? Lockers and stuff from those places like that. So anybody else have anything? Any questions or anything? Once again, thank you very, very much for coming in. Please hit the thumbs up for me. His name is Phil. He owns Sports World in Massachusetts. He's been doing this for, my God, 30 plus years, I believe. And he knows just about everything. He used to have a lot of the wrestlers and people come in to his store and sign autographs. Wow, that's cool, Dolly. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, so hopefully everybody's cool and everybody's, still hunkering down, doing their thing. And, just staying safe, basically. Penny Day, it's a round robin pulp culture night. Okay, they're answering that. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you very much for coming in. Oh, sorry, Mick. I didn't see that. I did not see that. I was trying to let him go, and then I didn't want to rush him, but he made it, pertinent that he had that call he had to go on, and because that could be a possible, like he said, TV show, which would be excellent. I'd be nervous as hell, but hey, that's what he does. He writes the stuff and gets picked up for movies and TV, so that's a dream right there. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, old school picker. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I have to start getting rid of some. Yeah, I was working here the other day, Bobby, and I had it playing on the other screen a little bit. And the person that asked about the unedited parts and stuff, most of all of them with the baby Herman and stuff like that, you could see all those on the laser disc. Hardly anybody has a laser disc player anymore, but I think that's one of the reasons why some of those laser discs go for a lot of money, like that one, Little Mermaid. There's a few that have all those uncensored scenes and stuff that they left in the laser disc. Was wondering if they were straight text or no, they're all straight text. I have the books that he signed for me also. They are just straight text. And the funny thing, Roger Rabbit on the cover of the book is wearing coveralls, but he's not a cartoon. He looks like Peter Rabbit, the way they did Peter Rabbit back in the day, like a stuffed animal. He looks like that on the cover. Thank you very much, old school picker. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I don't know about that, Adam. That was back in the 80s when, who knows, who knows what they were doing. It's like some of the things back in the 70s and stuff, they don't get credit for merchandise sold and stuff like that. Hi, Misha. It did, Mick. It did. The phallus symbol in the castle. But okay, so I'm going to cut it here. I might be on later on doing some pop culture. I don't know if Dolly said I was on with her, or she wants me to come on with her, or she wants me to stay far away. I don't remember. It's been crazy. It's been crazy. But stay safe out there. Stay safe, and do what you got to do. And it's a crazy time, but we just have to get through it. Definitely have to get through it. Okay, Dolly, I didn't know if you wanted me to or not. I wasn't sure. My head was focusing on this, catching up. I did some online sourcing, like Dolly was talking about, and it does. Yeah, Bobby, huh? And it works. Everybody. If you don't know, just one quick tip, I guess. Estatesales.net. Make sure you use the .net, and I'll put it in the chat. You'll see that 99%, if not 100%, of the estate sales are canceled. But there's some companies thanks, Hector. Thank you very much. There's some companies that they sold the house, or the unfortunate person passed away, had to go into assisted living. So they're doing virtual estate sales. You can actually bid or pay for the item. There's no bidding. There's just paying for the item on the estatesales.net page. So that's what I did Wednesday. And today I went to go pick it up. It was 30 miles away. That's why I was gone most of the day. But it worked. It worked. So you might want to check your area, because it's all by map. See if whatever's close to you, and they're probably doing it. And that might be a good way to pick up some stuff. Just be careful when you're driving. I heard somewhere in our local news today that starting tomorrow, if they catch you out and you are not wearing a mask, it's a $600 fine, and or possibly 6 months in jail, which is, because you're only supposed to be out for necessities, shopping and stuff, food. So I don't want anybody to get in trouble like that. So be good, everybody. Have a great ending to your Friday. Not like it's any difference. It's just another day. And we'll see you tomorrow. I believe that we're going to be on Lisa, Dolly, Adam, Francesca, Louise, Debbie, Jose, Emilio. I think we're all going to be on tomorrow. Yes, I'm in Florida. We're all going to be on tomorrow at 9:00 doing a little coffee chat. Now, there'll be 6 of us out of that group I just mentioned. So if you want to join us, join us. So have a great night, everybody. Once again, I really appreciate everybody coming in and having a good time with us. Other than that, I'll see you tonight on an auction and tomorrow. Good night, everybody.